Hello and welcome to another episode of Power Armor Builder Reacts. And now in this episode we're going to be going over the Astartes II trailer, because why the hell not? Now it is only a minute or so long, but even in that short amount of time they managed to cram loads of great animations of suits of power armor from the Warhammer 40k setting into it. Which, as normal for the Astartes series, they managed to get in these suits of armor looking absolutely perfect, both relative to the lore and actually relative in proportions. So let's begin. On the Marine holding plasma rifle who has a beautifully crafted gorget. I've forgotten what type of power armor this is. I think it's Mark 8, I'll try find it. But what I love about this is the fact that it's actually roughly the correct size, so it's quite nice and tight around the helmet. It's still got enough room to actually rotate the helmet round, but it's not too much room where it'll basically block your vision looking down, and it's not too big on these sides where it basically doesn't make sense from a proportions point of view. Again, there are few creators, both official and not, who manage to get that right. Usually when a gorget, or gorget, I'm not actually sure how you pronounce that, is put on Space Marines, it ends up being too far out and too massive to the point where you can't actually see your hands. And while it can still look quite cool, it's something that I don't think is very accurate from the actual power armor point of view. And as for these fantastic close-ups of the helmet, there are a few that make the helmets look as good as they do in Astartes, particularly when it comes to Firstborn Marines. There's a lot out there that just kind of don't seem to get the eyes right, or the shape's a little wrong. Something I actually like about the Astartes ones is that the top of the helmet isn't just like a round helmet, it's actually shaped so it's more rectangular with beveled edges. Which is also the correct shape to try and make it as narrow as possible while actually fitting a human head, as our heads are not balls. One thing that I've always wondered with the Space Marine helmets, I've never had like a cosplayer helmet of a Space Marine, but it always looks like they go really narrow around the mouth and like it'll basically be too tight around the mouth, despite the fact that they have the Vox piece sticking out. I've always kind of looked at power armor helmets being perhaps needing to be more like the Fallout ones, where they kind of go bigger at the bottom for breathing apparatus and everything like that. But if you have a cosplay Space Marine helmet, particularly a Firstborn Marine, please feel free to comment down below on whether it gets too tight around your mouth or not, because I am intrigued. I also just wanted to pause it on this little scene here just to go over the majesty of the effort that they're putting into this. You've got the ammo counter on the heavy bolter, but you've also got these shells ejecting randomly and hitting the floor randomly. They could just make them eject straight out and clear the screen, but no, they've got them landing individually in perfect detail. Even something else he's got right is just the height of the chest plate in comparison to the pauldrons. Because at the end of the day, the chest plate goes over the shoulders, the traps are higher. Even with big thick pauldrons, you are going to have a chest plate that is at least somewhere up to the top of the regular part of the pauldron. Again, it's all just so well formed in this animation that even in animations like Space Marine 2 and in Angels of Death, they just didn't quite get that right, but yet Astartes managed to get it every time. And I know you can kind of look at this and think you're picking at Warhammer 40k for realism, but I think these little touches, even though to an average viewer don't mean anything, I do think it just adds to the whole thing so much more, having this really, really accurate modelling. Try to pause on this image, which I believe is the Sons of Medusa chapter as they fight the Tau. Two things to point out here. One that might be more obvious, and that is their use of heavy bolters. I actually think this makes perfect sense in power armor. You can link the targeting for the bolter up to the helmet display, so it's not like you actually need to look down the rifle in any way. And even though it looks like the heavy bolter is held pretty low to the ground, in reality Space Marines are 8 feet tall at least, so actually the bolter is still actually held up at a decent height. The second, perhaps less obvious thing, is if you look down at his legs. And this to me is just extra mastery of the animation, so you can see the flare in the shins, in particular at the bottom, how you've got this cutout, which allows all of the room that you need for your ankle to basically move up and round and for you to actually function while you step forward. It's also got the little overlapping piece underneath to maintain arm coverage, while having a big enough arch in that shin to again give you that deflection of the ankle. You can also even see how his foot is actually tilted in at an angle. Again, if this was a lesser animation, you just won't bother doing that. And this is where the quality of the Astartes production animation is just going to be unparred to anything. I mean, does anyone else miss tracked vehicles in 40k? I'm kind of not that much of a fan of the anti-grav tanks. I like that they're kept with tracked vehicles, I just wanted some new tracked vehicles. Onto this fantastic image of the Retributor without the helmet on. Just take a look at the proportions between the chest plate and the arms, how big the arms look, which are always going to look big because you've got this large amount of armour on the arms, so it immediately kind of just makes your arms look bigger than they actually are, or perhaps you would think they are, while having an accurate sized chest that isn't one too broad, that isn't basically too big for the head or for the shoulders. Again, these are proportions that is very rare you actually see done correctly in 40k, apart from in the Astartes series. And I've got to pause it on here because I think the Scythe of the Emperor chapter is now my favourite colour scheme. This contrasting yellow and black colour where the yellow is pretty deep but the black's actually quite shiny, I think that looks fantastic. If I was any good at painting at all anymore, I would certainly be trying to paint these in the future. However, I'm terrible, so I'm probably going to have to stick to hydro dipping. And then the scene ends on some thick boy Terminator armour, which I've already done a video on in the past.
Which is in the playlist in case you're interested.
But yeah, the hype for Astartes II is definitely there and is thoroughly justified across the board, as I think everyone agrees who's into Warhammer 40k. Now, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you want to see more on the project for the power armour, I'll put something at the end of the video. But there is a playlist on the channel as well for power armour development. The next video is going to be the back armour casing upgrades, along with a discussion on power pack types, with a lot more to come in the coming weeks. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this little video and I hope you have a great day.